friends, it's Aaron here. I'm with Georgia Kelly, the executive director of the Praxis Peace Institute, and we just finished recording a podcast episode focused largely on the Mondragon cooperatives over in the Basque region of Spain. Georgia, it's been such a joy to do the podcast interview with you and to be planting seeds of collaboration with you. And I'm thrilled you would take a few additional minutes to chat behind the scenes here for our ambassador network. And I want to kick it right off by asking you, how did you get into this in the first place? This work with the Mondragon cooperatives and taking people on immersive experiences there for now something like 11 or 12 years.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to what we were just talking about shortly. And if I'm going on too long or spending too much time on one thing, just interrupt me and tell me.
Not at all. It's as much as you'd like to share.
This all began, or at least my first career was as a professional musician. I'm a harpist, a composer, recording artist, and my focus was completely on that with interest in politics, always interested in politics, I think since I was 7 years old. And very much oriented toward peace and social justice. So although that wasn't my clear focus at the time, music was, and I had my own record label, so I was doing business and doing music. So that was kind of a focus up until 1991, when I was invited to perform at a composers festival in Zagreb, Croatia. And I had a few years before that discovered my relatives there, and thought this will be wonderful to go there. And I think I'll spend 6 months in Yugoslavia, which it was then, and live there, see what it's like, and see if I want to stay there longer. So I rented my own apartment there, played in the festival, and felt really relieved that I had left the US that was in the middle of the first Gulf War with Iraq, and was just feeling great about arriving somewhere else, when within 2 months of that arrival, Yugoslavia dissolved into a civil war. So I was living there as it started. And when Croatia and Slovenia left the country of Yugoslavia, seceded and became their own countries. And the war was sometimes, I think, about 26 miles away from Zagreb, one of the front lines. So it was kind of a crazy time in a way. And I thought maybe there's just no way of avoiding war until we really learn the lessons of that we need to learn to avoid it. And to me, that meant learning the lessons of history and why we kept repeating them. And that led to my forming a conference through another organization at the time, Pathways to Peace in Marin. I put together a conference that took place in Dubrovnik, Croatia, because it had been a city-state that had never gone to war and had focused on diplomacy and not war. I thought this is the place it should be in. And actually, several people, I would say some 60 people came, 70 people came to it, and it was a week long. So we had a wonderful time there, as well as looking into these reasons. And at the end of it, it became clear that the inquiry had only just begun. So that's how Praxis Peace started, out of that conference in June 10th, 2000. And since then, the focus has been primarily on how do we get to peace from where we are. And one of the key pieces of that was economics, the economic reasons that drive war. And what are then the economics alternatives that support peaceful relationships? And so one day I was actually working with, I had been a delegate for Jerry Brown at the Democratic Convention in 1992 when I returned to the US. And then I did some volunteer work for him for a while and was actually scheduling guests for his radio show. So one of the guests was someone who'd been to Mondragon. And when the show was over, I called him up. This is Terry Molnar. And I said, Terry, tell me everything you can about this place. It sounds magical. I want to know about it. So he did. And this is in 1995. And I was determined to someday get there. And as we were looking at another conference in Dubrovnik in 2007, I thought we need to get someone from Mondragon here. We're looking at the economic alternatives that support peaceful relationships. So I called different economists I knew. Nobody knew anyone at Mondragon. In fact, most of them had never heard of Mondragon. So I thought, I'm going to have to get a few Spanish phrases together and cold call Mondragon some midnight when it's 9 a.m. there. I did. And eventually I got put through to someone who spoke English. And now I've learned a lot more Spanish. But then, and I asked him if he would come and speak at our conference in Dubrovnik the following year, 2007, or 7. And he did. And it was at that conference that we talked about putting together this week-long seminar, which we did the following year, which was our first year there, 2008. So that was kind of the evolution. It's been really looking for what are the building blocks of a peaceful nation. And the economic part of this was so critical that I saw Mondragon as a beacon. And then when I got to understand about their parliament, how they dealt with the ETA, their terrorist organization, how they worked in peace, I realized they understand this in a way that no one else I knew of saw the connections between the economics, peace, the relationships. So all that became more and more important to me. And Mondragon then took on a larger than life role in my life and in my focus, because I saw that that culture understood these pieces. They understood the pieces of peace. And they're constantly evolving. They never think they've got the answer. That's also what's interesting. They're not ideological about what they've done. They keep evolving it. And because of that, it's always fresh. It's never this dogmatic belief system. They don't operate in any kind of dogmatic way. And that in itself, to me, is living peacefully. So that's kind of the journey in a short amount of time that I took.
So beautiful, Georgia. Yeah. You know, I was invited to a peace and reconciliation conference, which was a week long in Kosovo in 2016 with many different political and even former military folks from Serbia and elsewhere from the Balkans. And yeah, it was powerful. We toured around and saw some of the remaining conflict areas where there were still bullet holes in the walls, and it was just a really potent experience for me. And of course, being Slovenian and having family over there, that region is near and dear to my heart, and I'm really excited to explore some of the additional opportunities for collaboration we have potentially in that area, that part of the world as well. And I can't help, I'm thinking of my grandma now, my grandma Pep, Pepska, who made such good food. I can't help but ask you about some food. And when you're thinking about meals in Mondragon, and you mentioned during the podcast, it's a really wonderful place for culinary delights, many notable multi-star Michelin restaurants and so on. Are there particular dishes or foods that come to mind for you when you think about eating over there?
I'm not the best person to ask about the culinary arts in the Basque region, primarily because I'm a pescatarian. I don't eat meat, and they have a lot of meat dishes. I haven't eaten meat in 50 years, so I have no sense of meat in my life. So I can't really tell you a lot about the culinary experience because of that. But I do know about the pinchos, which are the tapas.
Okay.
And you know, the fish there is great because I do eat fish sometimes, and I do when I'm there. You know, it's interesting because I really like the Slovenian food too.
Yeah.
The Dalmatian food. It's simple, and I don't like complex foods. I like simple, fresh, simple, great. So I'm not a foodie, but that's what I like. And I think those areas really have wonderful fish. They have wonderful fruits and vegetables, especially the Dalmatian coast. I think the fresh vegetables and fruits are incredible. So I like kind of the area I've come from, maybe more than the area you're asking about.
Okay.
They're more meat eaters and I'm not. Yeah. So I can't really tell you. You need to ask someone who's a meat eater about
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, all of this Slovenian food, all the food, it's making me hungry. I love it.
Yeah. Well, they have really good desserts.
Yeah.
You know, those things I do eat. Yeah, it's lovely being there. And it's a food catering cooperative that feeds us our main meal of the day when we're there in the seminar, which is
Cool,
lunch.
cool. Well, let me ask just one more question then. In these 11 years or 12 years you've done these immersive excursions to Mondragon, what's like the funniest thing that's happened, or sort of like the most bizarre or whatever, like the more peculiar, you could say, thing that's happened that you can think of?
Bizarre or peculiar or funny. Yeah, nothing totally comes to mind at the moment. I know there must be because I've been there so many times.
Yeah.
Um, they might
Is
usually be with the people we bring.
it? Oh, that's probably true and probably
Right,
hilarious.
right. Because rarely have we had anyone who's been a problem on our trip.
Yeah.
Once or twice there have been a couple of people who maybe have been a little bit not with the program, but
Yeah.
mostly that's not happened. So
Yeah.
I think people are very respectful. I think our group is very respectful, very willing to learn. And they always give us lots of time for questions. And then they hang out with us at lunch and they're in the bus with us sometimes. So we have lots of time to talk to them
Yeah.
individually as well as in the group. And that's what the week does too. It gives us extra time to be with them and to talk and to arrange other meetings, which I do usually with people who want to do that. But as far as a funny story, off the top of my head, I'm not getting one.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I am curious, is it culturally, would you say, is it more on the humorous side or more on the serious side, or like how would you characterize the people that way?
Well, Ander, who's the person who leads our group now, is very funny,
Uh-huh.
very good sense of humor. In fact, the first time we had him as our leader, because the other one had retired, he said, I'm going to teach you a couple of phrases in Basque. And he said, good morning is egunon. And he said, now can you figure out what good night is? Kind of look at him, how can we figure it out? He says, it's egun off.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Like wax on and wax off. I like it.
Right. So he's very funny and we have a lot of fun with him, but he's also an extremely good presenter and talking about the history and the nuts and bolts of the Mondragon cooperatives. Wonderful person. They're just incredible people anyway. People at Mondragon.
Fabulous. Well, Georgia, it's so wonderful to have this opportunity to visit with you. And before we sign off our behind the scenes segment for our ambassador audience, just want to give you the floor once again if there's anything you'd like to share with our ambassadors in particular.
Well, I hope they've enjoyed hearing about Mondragon and about the Basque region. And if they want to come on our trip in September, we have spaces and would love to have them join us. And I'm free to speak to anyone about it if they would like.
Fabulous. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me on today. It's been a pleasure.
Yep, my pleasure, Georgia. Thank you. And look forward to being in touch soon.
Okay.
See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye. We're leaving now?
Yeah, just one quick item. If you have an easy way to scare up the revenue and or assets under management figures, I'll include that in the show notes, but I'm happy I can go online and try to track it down too.
What is it you're looking for?
Yeah, just the financial numbers,
okay.
annual revenue and the banking assets under management. Just, it'd be nice to include that.
Yeah, I'll do that later today. At this point, I've got to do some things before 5 o'clock here. So
yeah, great.
Plus have lunch.
Yeah, right, exactly.
So yeah, cool. I can do that later. But
well, go ahead.
I just said it's been really fun. And I hope this works out for you to come because I think you would get a lot from it and I can really hook you up with a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Have you been to Slovenia?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought you had.
But not in some time and not since our family reconnected with our family there, our family here in the States with our family in Slovenia. So I'm really looking forward to getting back over there. And if this all works out and there's time in Croatia, elsewhere, et cetera, it'd be absolutely fabulous.
Well, once I know that you're going here, I can tell you what I think my plan is right now. I'm not sure which city I'm coming into yet. It's either going to be Barcelona or Madrid for 2 days, then Bilbao. And then after Bilbao, I might stay a couple of days, but then I'm going to Dubrovnik and or Zagreb. I'm not sure which one first, but let's talk about that, because we could be there at the same time and maybe connect with some of the same people, which would be
that
great.
would be super.
Yeah.
And for this to be feasible at present, I mean, maybe we get a $500,000 gift in the meantime, and this changes completely. But at present, for this longer stay to work, it's going to mean asking folks to put me up here and there. And of course, family in Slovenia is happy to do that. My son was over there last summer, and through the LaCiel Foundation. Are you familiar with the LaCiel Foundation?
No, what is it?
It's amazing. I'm part of this year-long process with them where I'm facilitating a weekly call, Zoom chat with a cohort of 12 people in total, focused on financial systems, funny enough. And they do this thing each year with 144 people, so 12 different groups of 12, ranging from education to sacred sites to various aspects of stewardship, regeneration, sustainability, spirituality, health, and wellness on the planet. And that's the reason I'm going later in October for that conference. That's their gathering for the whole group.
And where is that?
That's outside of Barcelona.
Okay.
Yeah, and so LaCiel Foundation is based out of the UK. The founders, Olivier and Sophie, are from she's from Corsica. He's French speaking. I don't know exactly where he's from, and they're amazing. And each of the 12 cohorts is co-facilitated each year by one man and one woman. So my colleague Chloe and I run our group, and I would highly recommend you connecting with them.
How do you spell it?
It's L-E and then C-I-E-L. It's for the sky in French.
Right.
And it's the holistic visions process. And they're fabulous. And so the hope is between what we can coordinate, with you, with some of our other contacts and friends, and with them, if this extended trip does come to fruition, that we can try to keep the costs, as reasonable as possible, and do as much podcasting as reasonably can be done, and visit as many beautiful, wonderful projects and sites and people as can happen.
This reminds me, in 2007, when we had our third conference in Dubrovnik, we've had 3 there. The third one, I invited Tom Hayden as a speaker. He came, and Ton Hartman at that time had an Air America radio program, and he came. And Francis Moore-Lepay was there, and David Corton. And so Tom Hartman, I hooked him up with Radio Dubrovnik, and he broadcast his Air America show from Radio Dubrovnik, interviewing Tom Hayden,
Cool.
Francis Moore-Lepay, David Corton. It was just, and I got the recording. If you ever want to hear it, I can send you the link to it. And it's just a gas. I sent it to Tom Hartman not long ago, and he was just blown away by it, because he hadn't heard it in 15, 16 years.
Oh, I'd love to listen
it's
to
really
that.
fun.
That'd be
So let's try and figure this out. And you think of, places or people or foundations you might know too to help. I'm already on the hook for one that I'm trying to get, and I don't know how much I'll get. So it's a crapshoot in a way. I'm not good with fundraising.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I appreciate it, Georgia. And thanks. Hope it goes well with the individual you mentioned that might be able to help
That's
a couple of us.
I'm waiting to kind of that relationship to grow a little bit before I take the next step.
Yeah.
But
Sure.
I think he's got a foundation that could support people to go.
That'd be
So-
wonderful. Yeah, and depending on what other work he's doing, we could potentially feature him or his foundation or some of his other projects through the podcast too, if that's a nice way to, have a reciprocal dynamic in the
How big an
relationship.
audience do you have, or do you know?
Yeah, it's we of course get asked this quite often, and it's several thousand folks who listen to or watch each episode, and so it's not this gigantic audience like you would have with Joe Rogan or whatever. However, the audience is made up of many executives, organizational leaders, authors, scientists, community activists, indigenous wisdom
Our
keepers,
people.
youth activists. Yeah, folks who are really engaged in this work. And so we just launched a partnership with Chelsea Green Publishing, and we're interviewing several of their authors, and we'll be interviewing one of their executives soon. And, they're pushing episodes out to their audience, and they've got like 100,000 on their roster. And so, it's
That's a good
growing, but
relationship.
modest.
I kind
Yeah.
of have one with New Village Press. I was on their email list and I thought,
Cool.
well, they've got some interesting authors. I think I'll contact them. And it's a woman-owned publishing company in New York. And I've interviewed now 4 of their authors. So it's nice to have a relationship with a publishing company, especially ones we're aligned with.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And by the way, on this regenerative finance book project, we're still exploring publishers. We have our own, we launched our own press, basically Earth Water Press, years ago, and we've done like 10 or 12 books there. And we can do that, but it would potentially be more advantageous strategically in terms of reach and distribution to align with one of these other
I think
boutique
Chelsea
presses.
Green would be interested.
They're considering it. It's a little off for them, but not
How's it
completely
off for
off.
them?
Well, they tend to do a lot of like gardening and
Oh, okay. Well,
food
New
related.
Village
They've
Press might be good.
Okay, yeah, they do a little bit of thought leadership around regenerative economic ideas, but not this. This book is going to have a lot of very practical, structural, and strategic recommendations for entrepreneurs, financiers, others that are looking to move in this direction. So it's a bit hefty, I think, for them in general, but they are considering it, and there's a dialogue. But yeah, if New Village, is it?
Yeah, New Village Press. They definitely do more radical things.
Well, if you think of maybe an introduction or something, that would be awesome. And,
Okay, yeah, I definitely, when you will have some of it together or have a proposal together, let me know and I can just tell them about it.
I have a little summary I can send you if it
Okay,
is enough
Do
to
that, then I'll
share.
send it on to the owner or I'll put her in touch with you, put you in touch with her. I don't know what they're looking for. I just know I interviewed 4. In fact, I just interviewed one of their authors yesterday
Oh, wonderful.
on
That's
decolonizing our minds from the colonization in our country.
absolutely so important.
Yeah, so they've been really interesting authors and very politically savvy.
How frequently do you interview? Typically?
Almost weekly, but not weekly. Like I'm not going to do an interview next week because I have a live program a week from tomorrow with Randy Hayes and Andrew Kimbrell. We're doing a live program with them at Sonoma. And then the week after that, I don't have to interview because I have a public service event on medical advantage plans that a doctor member of Praxis is going to present.
Cool.
And then I've got Jody Evans from Code Pink coming next month, Tom Hartman. So
Cool.
I don't have every week right now, but I'll start plugging more in.
Have you connected with Jonathan Granoff from the Global Security Institute?
It's interesting you mentioned him because I did know him years ago, but I haven't been in touch with him for a long time.
Yeah, he's on. I connected with him when I was out in New York 2019 for the big climate march UN thing that happened. And he's been on the podcast. He's on our global advisory board. If helpful, I'm happy to make a quick email connection if you don't already have his
I
info.
probably do, but I might check with you.
Yeah.
I interviewed Paul Hawken last week, which was,
Cool.
yeah, really interesting. But yeah, let's, I'm at this point needing to go get some lunch and
Yeah.
out my throat.
Two more quick questions. How big's your audience, out of curiosity?
It's small. It's not like your size. And it depends, we haven't really promoted it, which I
Yeah.
think, the YouTube thing is kind of new for me.
Yeah.
But now I'm seeing the possibilities of it, but we need someone to help us grow this audience.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Artem could be helpful depending. Um, yeah, I'd love to connect with Paul, and I was just going to suggest if it's something you'd like to do, we could share guests back and forth with each
that
other.
might be really good.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, that would
Yeah.
be good. I like that idea.
Cool. Well,
Um,
if not to add even one more, but if an introduction to Paul Hawken is easy and you're comfortable doing it, it'd be fabulous to interview him as well.
okay, I have to email him anyway. He
Yeah.
was really generous with his time with us.
Cool.
It's hard to get. I had a real hard time pinning him down, and he knows me.
Yeah.
I was advertising the program, and he hadn't committed fully until
Oh
10
gosh.
days before.
Oh my goodness.
And I thought, he's got to do it because I've already put out all this stuff and I'm not pulling it back. And he did it. But yeah, he can be hard to get, but once you get him, he's there
Yeah, I love that.
completely. So yeah, I will ask him and then send you his info.
Thank you.
Great.
All right. Great
Great to
chat.
talk to you.
Georgia.
And let's
too.
talk again soon.
Absolutely. Yeah. Take care. Talk
You
soon.
too. Bye.
Bye-bye.
The Y on Earth Community Stewardship and Sustainability podcast series is hosted by Aaron William Perry, author, thought leader, and executive consultant. The podcast and video recordings are made possible by the generous support of people like you. To sign up as a daily, weekly, or monthly supporter, please visit yonearth.org/support. Support packages start at just $1 per month. The podcast series is also sponsored by several corporate and organization sponsors. You can get discounts on their products and services using the code YONEARTH, all one word with a Y. These sponsors are listed on the yonearth.org/support page. If you found this particular podcast episode especially insightful, informative, or inspiring, please pass it on and share it with a friend whom you think will also enjoy it. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your support. And thank you for being a part of the Y on Earth community.